Hello everyone, welcome back to Maple Street. Here on Maple Street, we celebrate the master of suspense himself, Alfred Hitchcock. All month long, August is devoted to him, and we are continuing that celebration by talking about movies that he has made and whether or not they are better on a rewatch. I took a film class once. In that film class, we had assigned readings, and I remember reading in the film book, you can't really judge a movie until you've seen it at least twice, and even then, it's almost unfair, and I agree with that. I think the first time you watch a movie, you're experiencing it for the first time, so you're trying to see what the movie's going for. But on a rewatch, you can really just appreciate character motivations, what story the director's trying to tell, movements of the camera, why the cinematography is the way it is. Alfred Hitchcock is especially a highlight when it comes to rewatching movies. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Vertigo, when I first saw it, I liked it, but I didn't understand how it was such a critically acclaimed movie. It's been each rewatch of Vertigo that I've realized more and more how perfect that movie is. Today I want to give you a list of 7 Alfred Hitchcock movies that I rewatched for the first time. Give you my thoughts on if I thought they were better or worse. Why they were better, why they were worse, things I noticed that I didn't notice on the first time, things that were repetitive from the first time. I'm looking at my list right now, and I will tell you, even though I call a movie worse on a rewatch, it does not mean it's a bad movie. In fact, every movie that I talk about today is good in my eyes. When you can rewatch a movie and get something more out of it, that's when you're really studying a film correctly and critiquing a film correctly. And so, we are going in alphabetical order. The first movie is I Confess. This movie stars Montgomery Clift. In the movie, he plays a priest, and a local man comes to him and confesses his sins, that he has murdered a person in the community. Montgomery Clift cannot tell the police about this, though, because it was told to him in a confession, and in order to stay true to his covenant and to his duty and calling, he can't break that commandment of revealing sins to others. The movie especially takes a turn for the worse when Montgomery Clift finds himself accused of the crime. Although he knows that he is innocent and who actually committed the murder, he can't say anything. So it's a very fascinating movie. The first time I saw it, I gave it an 8 out of 10, and I especially loved Montgomery Clift's performance. I also really loved the storyline. The entire time I was wondering, what direction is this going to go in? And it wasn't the most suspenseful movie, but it was suspenseful in the sense of how is this going to end? On a rewatch, I stand by Montgomery Clift gives a great performance. Really like his subtle performance here. He's very simple, but at the same time, you can just see the gears shifting in his head. Unfortunately, though, on a rewatch, it wasn't as exciting waiting till the end. Because I knew what direction the movie went in, there's nothing exciting or ominous or mysterious about it. And I know that there are plenty of other movies in existence that you rewatch, like Psycho. I've seen that dozens of times. Yeah, I still love rewatching it. Unfortunately, I Confess wasn't the case. It moved slower than the first time, and I think that's solely because I knew how it ended. In addition to that, I was just a little frustrated. This goes against the whole movie, but I would almost want to tell the police, hey, just for your nice to know, I didn't commit the murder. I know who did, but because of my oath as a priest, I can't tell you, but I know who did it. That probably defeats the whole purpose of the movie. That's why we have a movie. I mean, if he could do that, he would. Let's move on to the verdict. On a rewatch, I Confess was worse. It went from an 8 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10, and on my ranking, it went from number 16 to number 31. The next movie is Jamaica Inn from 1939. This movie stars Charles Laughton and one of Maureen O'Hara's earliest film roles. The first time I saw this movie, I gave it a 7 out of 10, but it was just barely at that 7 mark. And I remember the reason I gave it a 7 was solely for Charles Laughton's performance. I loved his performance. He's very zany in this movie. He just plays a madman, really. But outside of that, I didn't think it was a very good Hitchcock movie. On a rewatch, I agree with my first watch. Charles Laughton is incredible and still the standout of this movie. In addition to that, though, I found this to be a great Hitchcock film. There was a lot happening. It is a pirate film in every sense of the word, except that there are no pirates. You could say the smugglers are pirates, except they're always on land. But basically, the general plot of the movie is this mob of smugglers. They purposely orchestrate shipwrecks so that when the ship wrecks onto the island, they can steal all the goods and kill everyone who was on the ship. And so they're profiting from murder and stealing pirates, right? Charles Laughton is the head of this organization, but it's very secret. No one knows that he's the leader except for his right-hand man. And so the movie brings a lot of interesting situations where he has to pretend like he doesn't know what's going on, even though he is literally at front and center the mastermind behind the project. And I loved seeing that. I loved seeing him play two different faces, pretending like he has no idea what's going on, even though deep down he's wondering, how am I going to get out of this situation without revealing that I'm the bad guy, kind of thing. And that's what worked for me on a rewatch. I just appreciated the story more and the situations that Laughton found himself in. And Sir Humphrey Pengallan, such a crazy character. I loved him from the beginning of the movie to the very end of the movie. Very entertaining. One of the best Hitchcock performances, I would say. One of Laughton's best performances. It's crazy, but it's so fun, and it looks like he's having a blast. So ultimately, the verdict, if you haven't already caught on, I found this to be much better. Gave it an 8 out of 10. I could see on a rewatch it even getting a 9 out of 10. And it jumped on my ranking. It went from number 36 to number 19. The next movie is Lifeboat. On a first watch, I gave this movie an 8 out of 10. I was a little bothered by the dated aspect of segregation. I'm still bothered by that. There's a character, Joe. He's an African-American man, and he doesn't even make the poster, even though he is a main character. It bothers me because there are some characters that make the poster that die early on, and they're in the poster. It's like, why is this person in the poster, yet Joe, who's the main character of the whole movie, isn't? Little things like that still annoy me, but that's just sign of the times kind of thing. I loved how a movie that's so simple on paper, just a group of diverse people stranded on a boat having to survive. Like, very simple on paper, but when you put it to screen, it was entertaining. The technical aspect of it is just incredibly impressive. How they filmed this in a studio, the waves beating against them, and just what they were able to do back then in such an early time of filmmaking. So really impressed by all that. On this rewatch, I agree with all the technical aspects. Still really appreciated that. I loved Tallulah Bondi. What is her name? Tallulah something. Okay, we are turning off the Wi-Fi because you are going so slow. I also loved Tallulah Bankhead's performance both times. It's clear that she was an inspiration for Cruella de Vil. But this rewatch really showed me that I just don't like the characters in this movie. Kovic especially drives me crazy. He is such a jerk, and then he just turns around and is nice to people, and they just accept that. They're just like, oh, okay, he's nice now. They don't do anything about him being a jerk the entire movie. And then he starts falling in love with the character out of nowhere. They've been arguing and bickering the whole time, and then they start falling in love, they kiss, and it's like, what, is this the same movie? Are these the same characters interacting with each other? It was concerning to me. And then I don't love decisions that the movie made. I think that the movie is all about, let's not become too ridiculous, too savage. Let's remember our sane sides. And it takes this path of, no, we're going to show what happens when people go crazy. I kind of wish it didn't go in that path. I'm trying not to spoil it too. Ultimately, Lifeboat, still enjoyable, but it went from an 8 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10. I also removed the heart from Letterboxd. I'm so cool. And it didn't change too much on my ranking. It went from 27 to 33. It just moved a few spots down on the ranking. Next up, we are talking about Spellbound. Initially, I gave this movie a 9 out of 10. I was really amazed by Ingrid Bergman's character, her performance. Loved seeing her working with Gregory Peck as well. And I thought there was a lot of cool mystery to the movie. Plus, the dream sequences in this movie are so unique and so memorable. It was something that even after watching it, that was like what I associated Spellbound with. The crazy, unique dream sequences. On a rewatch, I agree with everything that I just said. Still really enjoyable. I did find it to be a little cheesier than the first time. It also suffered a little bit from the same problem I had with I Confess, where because I knew the direction it went in, it wasn't as exciting. But with that being said, I'll also throw in, I didn't remember this one as well as I Confess. I think I Confess is a very straightforward story, whereas Spellbound has some twists and turns along the way. And so on a rewatch, it was cool revisiting those twists and turns and being reminded of certain things I'd forgotten. I just knew the ultimate outcome of the movie, and so nothing too exciting there. I also don't think this is Gregory Peck's best performance. It's a little awkward at times. I think he's supposed to be having an emotional breakdown or something, but his voice is so stern and so serious that it's a little hard to take him serious in those kinds of situations. And the scene that is so unintentionally funny is when they're skiing down the hill. That to me was the cheesiest part of the movie. It's supposed to be this very serious scene where something suspenseful is about to happen. It's leading up to this one pivotal moment and you don't know what's going to happen, but it's filmed in front of a green screen or whatever they use back in their time. Their hair is blowing, they're skiing down this mountain, and it cuts back and forth between the both of them, and they're just kind of like, It's supposed to be serious, but I couldn't help but kind of laugh to myself. Ultimately, I did find it worse on a rewatch, but not substantially worse. It went from a 9 to an 8, and it only went from number 11 on my ranking to number 15. Really, all that happened was it got kicked out of the nearly perfect tier on my ranking and more towards the top of the great tier. Next movie is To Catch a Thief. I originally gave this movie 8 out of 10 stars. I really enjoyed it for the Technicolor. I liked the performances. I loved Cary Grant and Grace Kelly's chemistry. And yeah, it was a pretty straightforward, solid Hitchcock movie. On a rewatch, I went into it remembering bits and pieces of it. I loved everything that I mentioned from the first watch, but I found appreciation out of so much more this time. Little things like when Cary Grant and Grace Kelly kiss, it cuts to fireworks, showing that they're opening up to each other, that they're feeling the fireworks within, that they're falling in love with each other. Really cool moments like that. And something that I appreciated the first time, but I think I appreciated even more the second time, was the scenery, the setting, the beautiful cinematography. I was watching the movie and just thinking, it's not fair that this movie was made in the 50s and that it looks better than movies that we get today. I knew the spoiler in this one. I remembered it from the first time. I don't think that really ruined anything. I think the movie, even outside the mystery, it has a lot going for it. There are some really fun characters. Grace Kelly's character is incredible. I love her in this. She's funny. The movie is funny. I just found it all around funnier, more enjoyable. To Catch a Thief was much better on a rewatch. It went from an 8 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10, and it went from number 20 on my ranking to number 10. Yes, it cracked the top 10. That's how much I enjoyed it. It was super fun. Like, this will be one that I rewatch in the years to come and just always enjoy. Next movie is Torn Curtain. Initially, I gave this movie an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed the bus sequence. I'm not going to go into spoiler territory, but if you've seen the movie, there's only one bus sequence. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Very exciting sequence there. And that was the biggest thing that I took from the movie. I wasn't a fan of Paul Newman and Julie Andrews at the time. I mean, they're both fine actors, but when I first saw it, they just didn't really do anything for me. On a rewatch though, a few things changed. So for one, I've been watching more Paul Newman movies lately, and I've been growing more and more fond of him, his performances, his method acting. I just like the guy. And so that was something that definitely helped on this rewatch. Something I agree with my past self on, and I believe this is a pretty universal take. I just don't think that Paul Newman and Julie Andrews had much chemistry in the movie. In fact, Julie Andrews in general, both times I've seen it, I haven't loved her performance. Love the actress. She is great in Sound of Music, Mary Poppins, Princess Diaries as well, but she feels miscast in this movie. She just doesn't click, and it might go back to the chemistry with her and Paul Newman, but there's something about her casting that's off. The bus sequence was equally as exciting as the first time, and I appreciated even more scenes. This movie is kind of famous for a slow murder scene that takes place, and I loved that so much more on this rewatch. It is disturbing to watch. It's slow. They take their time with it, and Alfred Hitchcock said in an interview he wanted to prove that it's not easy murdering someone. There were so many spy movies coming out around the time where they kill someone and it's said and done, just bang, you're dead, moving on. He wanted to show that it's difficult killing someone than getting rid of a body. And so the scene takes its time with the murder. Yes, I say I loved it, but I don't love it because I'm a sadist or anything. I love it because I just appreciate the time that went into it, and that, yeah, like, it's not easy murdering someone. I would know. There's also a very fun finale in this movie that takes place in an opera house that I appreciated more on this rewatch. And overall, this movie on a rewatch was a lot better. I still have it at an 8 out of 10. It went from number 30 to cracking my top 25 at number 21. It's a really good movie. It's a great movie. I don't really know why so many people dislike it. And finally, I watched Under Capricorn. This month is Ingrid Bergman month on my channel, and so I wanted to rewatch a movie with her outside of Spellbound and Notorious, which actually, funny enough, I've rewatched all those. Under Capricorn though, I wanted to give it another try because I remember on my first watch, I gave it a 6 out of 10. I really didn't enjoy it, just found it to be decent at best, but I did love the cinematography, and I loved the long takes that Alfred Hitchcock did. A lot of times he's only highlighted for Rope and the long takes he did in that movie, but Under Capricorn has so many great scenes to appreciate that are just dialogue for minutes and they can't mess up. And so really love that. And on a rewatch, I really loved that. But on a rewatch, that is all I loved. I remember the first time that I saw it, I was bored the whole movie. I appreciated the cinematography, and then the ending was exciting. On this rewatch, I was bored the whole movie, loved the cinematography. The ending wasn't exciting. Like, I was looking back and I was thinking, why was this ending so exciting to me? Why did I love this ending? And I wanted to love it so much, but I just didn't. And so I found this one worse on a rewatch, went from a 6 out of 10 to a 5 out of 10. It's at number 44. It was at this weird spot where it was at the bottom of my 6 out of 10 tier, but right ahead of the 5 out of 10 tier. And so changing it to a 5 out of 10 left it in the same spot of the ranking. So I thought this was worse on a rewatch. Thank you everyone for watching. I'd love to hear in the comments what movies you saw from Hitchcock that you found better or worse on a rewatch. There are still plenty of other Hitchcock movies I haven't seen on a rewatch yet. I've only seen them one time. And so if you liked this video, let me know. I'd love to do it again in the future. It was fun kind of sitting down watching a movie and just wondering, okay, what is this viewing gonna give to me? Thank you so much for visiting Maple Street as always. Make sure to tune in next Tuesday for my Ingrid Bergman top 10 list. Have a great day.